My name's Jed and I retired here to the beautiful kingdom of Thailand 5 years ago. Come and join me as I take you on a journey to discover the best that the land of smiles has to offer. Whether you're an expat, thinking of opening a business or working here in Thailand, or if you're a digital nomad looking to work in a more economical country than your own country, or if you're a holiday maker and you wanted to know the best places to visit in this beautiful, diverse country. Or maybe you're like me, a retiree looking for a better and cheaper place to spend your retirement during your golden years. Well, if that's the case, you've come to the right channel.
I'm on the ferry heading for Krabi to do the pros and cons of living in Krabi. But before I go, I want to do the cons or the bad things about living here in Koh Samui. And this is probably going to be one of the shortest videos I've ever made, because there's not many bad things about living in Koh Samui. But probably the worst thing for me about living here would be having to deal with the Thai immigration here on the island. Dealing with immigration should really be the same wherever you go in the country you're living in, and shouldn't vary from state to state or province to province. But unfortunately, Koh Samui's immigration department is the hardest department I've ever had to deal with in Thailand. In Hua Hin, it's never a problem, but dealing with immigration here, it's always a problem. In contrast to Koh Samui, when I go to Hua Hin to do my 90-day report or do my retirement visa once a year, it's always done quite easy. My 90-day report, I'm in and out within 5 minutes, where in Koh Samui, sometimes it takes me hours, and then sometimes I've had to go back 3 times in 3 days to try and complete what should take about 5 minutes. The second thing I dislike about living on Koh Samui would be the costs involved flying on or flying off the island. Koh Samui's airport is owned by Bangkok Airways, and they have a monopoly on flights coming into or leaving Samui, and they can charge whatever they want, and the prices of flying off and on the island, unlike the ferries, are very, very expensive. Since COVID prevented a lot of tourists from coming here internationally, they have dropped their prices recently to try to attract domestic tourism, but unfortunately they're still very expensive. I get around this by taking the ferry across to Donsak and then a bus to Surat Thani Airport, and I fly from Surat Thani Airport for about half the price that would cost me if I flew from Koh Samui. The third thing I don't like about living in Koh Samui is the amount of tourists that come here. I know I shouldn't complain because it is a tourist island, but when you live on an island you really don't want to be surrounded by tourists all the time. In 2019, 2.5 million tourists arrived on Koh Samui. The majority of them came during the high season between November and February. Of course, when COVID arrived in 2020, everything changed, and now there's hardly any tourists here. So it's not so much for now, but if you're thinking of coming to live here or holiday here, once the tourism gets back to how it was in 2019, then you might not like that everywhere you go you're surrounded by tourists and everywhere's busy. But having said that, you can always find a deserted beach on Koh Samui. You just got to get away from the tourist areas like Lamai and Shueng and search the island. You'll find some beautiful beaches even during a busy tourist season. The only other thing I can think of that's bad about living on Koh Samui would be the long distance between Koh Samui and a lot of other places in Thailand. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people like the idea of living on a remote island and being cut off from the rest of the world. But if you like to travel a lot around Thailand or other places in Southeast Asia, sometimes living on an island can be a bit restrictive. The logistics of getting on and off Koh Samui can sometimes be quite time consuming, especially if you're driving a car or a motorbike. Heading north by road, Wahin is about 560 kilometers away, or about a 9-hour drive. Bangkok is 760 kilometers away, and around about 11.5 hours to drive there. Khon Kaen is about 1,200 kilometers, and it will take you about 18 hours to drive there. Udon Thani is 1,300 kilometers, and about 20 hours of driving. Going to the beautiful city of Chiang Mai will take you about 21 hours, and it's about 1,500 kilometers. Chiang Rai is a similar distance to Chiang Mai. It'll take you about an hour longer to get there. There are some great southern towns quite close to Koh Samui. Krabi's only about 5.5 hour drive, around about 300 kilometers away. And Phuket is about a 6.5 hour drive and about 350 kilometers away. And if you feel like you've had enough of Thailand for a little while, Malaysian border is only about 7.5 hours drive away, around about 400 kilometers. So that ends the pros and cons of living in Koh Samui. And there were only 4 things, but when you think of all the great things that you can see and do on this beautiful island, 4 things that aren't so good isn't too bad. Everyone's different, and the few things that I dislike about living on Koh Samui might be different for you. But I can tell you this much, for someone who grew up in Middlesbrough in northeast England and spent time working in places like Papua New Guinea and the Falkland Islands, I can tell you from experience, there's a lot worse places to call home than Koh Samui. If you haven't already done so, please push the subscribe button. If you're thinking of retiring or living in Thailand, please take a look at my book, The Thailand Handbook, the first 6 months. You'll find it on Amazon. It's crammed full of information to help you tiptoe over the logistics of making Thailand your home in retirement. Thanks a lot for watching my channel. So until next time, stay safe, keep smiling, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers for now.